Hi, everybody. Can you guys see me here? My name is Eden. I am from the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, and I'm just really glad to be here with you guys today. So I can see that there's quite a good number of you guys here. So I'm just really excited that we can just do this webinar. I was hoping to actually go to Turkey in March, but then because of all the travel restrictions, we weren't able to. But I'm just really thankful that IEFT was able to organize this instead. So awesome, great. I can see some people answering. That's great. Yeah, I hope we can be a bit interactive here, but I know that with technology, we'll see how that works. But so today I'm hoping to share some things about our institution, about the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, just to be able to tell you guys a little bit more about our school. And this is the agenda for today. Just to explain a little bit more about why Canada is a great place to live, Alberta, the province, and Edmonton. I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard of Edmonton, the city, or Alberta, the province, but hopefully these things can be interesting for you guys to learn anyways. And then I'll share a little bit about NAIT, about our school, as well as applying to NAIT. Okay, and if you guys have questions along the way, feel free to send the messages in the chat or in the questions, and I'll try to get to them. I do have to switch back and forth, so if I miss your questions, I will get to it in a bit later, as well as at the end of the presentation. Okay. All right. So first off, where are we located? We're located in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada, and this is kind of, we're not at the border of the country, so we're kind of in the middle. And so to get to Edmonton, most people do have to fly through a transit place, so either Vancouver or Toronto. When I booked my flight to Istanbul, I think I was going to fly through Toronto or maybe Montreal. And so from Toronto and Montreal, it's about 4 hours flight. So quite big from west to the east. And so from Edmonton to Vancouver, it's about an hour flight. So in general, flying, if you were to fly directly to Istanbul, it would take 14 hours. But my total flight hours was going to be a little bit longer than that. I know that you could also fly through Frankfurt, for example, or some areas in Europe. So that would be most of the flight plans that you would be taking if you were to come. Okay, and so when most people think about Canada, and I'm not sure how many of you are very familiar with the country, they usually think that Canada will look like this, right? That Canada is like super cold, that there's like lots of snow everywhere. Maybe we have, moose or like polar bears as our pets. I mean, we do see these animals sometimes on the highway, but it's very, very rare that you just see them randomly. Okay, but people do have a really scared view of Canada as that's super cold. And it's not just cold. We do have 4 seasons in the country, so it's not that bad all the time. Our summer is actually very, very nice. And most people also think, when they think of Canada, the first thing they think of is our Prime Minister, right? So most of you have seen him. This is Justin Trudeau. He's our Prime Minister. I mean, the other thing too that people would think is that, a lot of Canadians are Caucasians, right? But we are actually known to be a very multicultural country. Okay, I see some of you have a smiley face to him. And yeah, like we have people from all over the world living in Canada. So as you can see, I'm Asian. And yeah, there's just like all kinds of people who live here, and we are very accepting of people from all different cultures. So very briefly, just some stats about Canada. We are actually one of the biggest countries in the world, right? So, we're actually even bigger than the US and a lot of other countries, but our population is actually only about 37 million people. So just to give you some context, Istanbul itself has 15.5 million people. So we actually, for such a big country, we don't have that many people living in this area. And so what that really means is that we do need to populate the country a little bit more. And so with that, we have actually kind of a lower population and like a aging population. So we are always inviting more people. And so our immigration policy is quite open. Last year, we had over 300,000 immigrants who became permanent residents. Out of that, 54,000 were international students. And so we recognize that international students do make really great permanent residents. And so we do invite a lot of them to become permanent residents in the future. And so this actually does help with our aging population and our labor market. And usually we are quite specific about the types of people that we would invite to become permanent residents. And with that, it does depend on the kind of programs that you study and whether it matches our labor shortages. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that as well in a little bit. And then just some other quick points about Canada is that we are known to have a very multicultural kind of environment, right? So you might have heard that the US is known to be a melting pot. We are known to be a mosaic. And so what that really means is that when we do have people coming from all over the world, and this is very normal of people who live in Canada, we do invite them to just kind of keep their culture. You don't have to shed your identity and where you came from. You can keep that, and we really celebrate that within our country. And so even in Edmonton, our city, we have all these festivals where we just celebrate where people are coming from all over the world. And we really encourage that. So there's like restaurants from people who come from different countries, and we just encourage them to keep that as well. And then other things that we're known for is that we are a very safe country, okay? Like people are feeling very safe within the country. They don't have to worry about a lot of, I don't know, yeah, any danger and stuff like that. They don't have to worry about that. And we also have a really strong and really good education. Post-secondary institutions and our education system for kids are really great too. Okay. And here are just some pictures of Canada. You might have seen, this might be some of your view of what it could look like in Canada too. Most of Canada has a lot of nature, but we also have a lot of cities embedded in the nature. And so this picture at the bottom is Montreal, and the one on the right is actually Edmonton during our fall season. So it's very, very pretty during that period of time. So it just has a big variety of different types of places. And if you kind of enjoy a little bit of a slower pace, Canada would be a good place for you too. And if you like nature, it's also a really great place for that. So now moving on to Alberta. Okay, so again, most people, when they think Canada, they might think, British Columbia, which is where Vancouver is, or they might think Toronto, which is where Ontario is. And so where we are located is in Alberta, which is the next province to the left of British Columbia. And so Alberta itself, a lot of people don't know too much about it, but actually has the third largest oil reserve in the world. And so with that, we are sitting on a lot of oil. And so Alberta actually is the province that runs Canada's economy. And so because of that, we actually don't have any provincial, we call it PST, which is the taxes that every province imposes on its people. So for all other provinces, you have to pay a tax to the government, but in Alberta you actually don't have to do that. So that makes the cost of living a little bit lower. So for example, if you have to buy a textbook for $100, generally speaking, if you lived in Vancouver, you would have to pay $114 because you have to pay the government federal tax of 5%, and then you also have to pay another 7-8% for British Columbia. And then if you're in Ontario, you maybe pay like $15-16 additional, right? But in Alberta, you only pay $105. So generally speaking, you already save on quite a bit of money that way, which is really nice. So again, that just helps with everything because you're talking about rent, you're talking about food, about everything that's in your living cost. So that's kind of a nice thing about Alberta. And a lot of people actually do move into Alberta because it's kind of a nice medium when you talk about all the provinces in Canada. Most people go to the really populated places like BC or Ontario, or even Montreal, Quebec. But then going to those areas would make it a lot harder to find a job. Alberta is kind of a nice medium because it's not quiet actually. It's not that there's like nobody here, but it's a little bit less populated than those areas. So you can still quite easily get a job. And so people are moving from other provinces into this province because they're able to find jobs a little bit better. Okay, and so here are just, again, some pictures of Alberta province. This is basically, Alberta is known for places like Banff and Jasper, the Rocky Mountains. So just kind of culturally, we do like to go into the mountains over for the weekend. We do like to chill in nature. That's what we like to say that, like, what did you do for this weekend? We went over to the mountains, or we went to Drumheller, which is a place where there are some dinosaur fossils and like kind of a really cool national park. So these are the kind of, the culture of the types of things that we like to do. We're quite laid back, quite relaxed. And so it's a very nice work-life balance, I would say. So people who live here do really enjoy doing that. Okay. And then here is a page that I like to show a lot of people. This is the Alberta government website that shows a lot of different kinds of jobs that are available and the wages that you get paid. So every province has a different mandate of how much you get paid. And in Alberta, we have actually one of the highest minimum wages in all of Canada. So in Alberta, you get paid a minimum of $15 per hour. So over here, this is actually even a little bit outdated because this was a couple of years ago. And so our minimum wage is at $15 per hour, which is around 68 lira, I think, so per hour. So even if you are working at like Starbucks as a barista, as an international student, you can work off campus up to 20 hours a week. And so you can earn a minimum wage of 68 lira. So that's quite easy for you to be able to get that. And then I'll talk about, I know you guys have asked some questions, but I'll answer those in a little bit, okay, because I'll get to those questions in a little bit as well. Okay, so back to this. This is, I think, a website that if you are interested in, and maybe you already have been working currently in Turkey, that you can just kind of get into this website and take a look and see, if you are thinking of doing certain jobs in the future, you can kind of get a good idea of how much you might be making. And again, back to like the standard of cost of living in Alberta, you do make a little bit more money than most other places in Canada. And even as an international student, you can support yourself with a little bit more money. But our, again, we have less taxes, and it would just be a little bit cheaper to live in Alberta because we're not as populated. So it does make things just a lot more affordable for you as an international student. Okay. And then one really nice thing too about Alberta is that we do have free health insurance for anybody who lives in Canada, for anybody who lives in Alberta. So if you have a study permit, you can get a free healthcare. So what healthcare means for us is that if you had to see a doctor, you don't have to pay anything. Even if you had to go to a hospital because, I don't know, you broke your arm or something, you would also not have to pay anything. So that's actually a really nice benefit to living in Alberta. When you graduate, you can still get free healthcare. If you brought your kids, they will also qualify for free healthcare. Okay. So for this Alberta healthcare, you don't have to pay anything. All you have to do is live in Alberta. So be a resident. So that's a really nice thing. And that would be for if you had to see a doctor, like I said. But in addition to that, usually when we see a doctor, they will say, maybe you need to get some sort of medication. And that medication does cost money. But as an international student at NAIT, we do have healthcare coverage, and that covers that medication. So we cover up to 80% of that medical medications. And that insurance is on top of your tuition. And it's not a very huge amount. It's about $80 per semester or so. So, but then it's kind of another addition that we will be able to provide for international students. So yeah, at this point, I mean, I'll be able to show you a little bit more about these breakdowns in a little bit as well. But so generally speaking, you will be quite covered as an international student in Alberta. Okay, and here, just for students who are thinking of bringing their family, maybe we have some mature students in the mix right now. If you have kids and you are currently studying in a credit program, so a credit program means anything that is a diploma or a degree, even a certificate. If you bring your kids can study for free in Alberta. So this is something that we offer to Albertans who live here. And then if you are thinking of bringing your spouse, so your partner can also come with you, and they can be eligible for open work permit. So you apply for a study permit, and then your spouse can get an open work permit. So that's actually quite, this open work permit is actually really hard to get in Canada. Generally, it's only a few ways. And what an open work permit means is that you can work anywhere. You're not tied to one company. You don't only have to work for that one company. So you can work anywhere you want in Canada, and it's quite hard to get unless you are a spouse of somebody who has a study permit. Or if you graduated from a school with a study permit, you can apply for a postgraduate work permit, and that is also an open work permit as well. So there's only a few ways, and this is one way. So if you want to bring your family, we do have a really good system here in Canada. And so the open work permit thing is open to anybody who is studying in Canada. It's not just limited to Alberta. But if you are thinking of bringing your kids, I know that Alberta is one of the few provinces that will offer studies for your kids for free. Okay, so now I'm going to talk briefly about Edmonton. I know there's a lot of different information, but I think when you're deciding to go overseas, there is a lot of things to consider. So I'm hoping to cover briefly as much as I can. The city that you will be living in is also very important, right? Because on top of your studies, you do have to enjoy where you're living in. So I myself, I've lived in Edmonton for about maybe 18 years now. I came here in high school, so it's been many, many years. So I have come to really love the city. When I first came, I thought it was quite cold, but then you do get used to it because we do have a lot of amenities in the city. So, so this is, oops, sorry. So what Edmonton is known for is we have this called the River Valley right in the middle of the city. And it's surrounded by a lot of nature. We call them the River Valley. It has 120 kilometers of trails. So you can go in there and it feels like a national park. But then it's also embedded in the city itself. So our downtown is actually just right there. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the downtown is here and the River Valley is right in the middle, kind of like this area and this area. So you can be working in like a building downtown, and then you can just walk into River Valley and just kind of take a bit of a break. And the city itself is not super populated. We have 1.4 million people. So again, in comparison, it's not very populated, but we are one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. So we have about 65,000 new people moving into Edmonton every year. And again, it's because of the job prospects, right? So kind of, again, alluding to most people when they think of moving, they go to the bigger cities. But then when everybody moves there, it does make it a bit harder to find jobs. And so places like the cities in Alberta are kind of getting more and more populated nowadays because we still have a lot of potential to grow. And it is one of, again, like I said, there's potential because of all the oil and gas industry as well. And we have other industries that we're trying to develop. And so it is one of those areas that, again, has a lot of potential. So in itself, it is actually also the capital city of Alberta, so the province, right? There is also Calgary, and which is a really famous city as well. But Edmonton itself is the capital city, okay? And we are also known to be very multicultural, and we have a lot of festivals in the city. So while we do have 4 seasons in the city, in the summertime and then in the wintertime, we do have festivals all year round because people in the city we really like to go out and just kind of have this sense of community, right? Especially in the wintertime when it feels really cold. Being outside does actually help a lot because then you feel connected with other people as well. So we do have all these like winter festivals to help people enjoy the city. And a lot of them are also very multicultural, okay? So, and then one last thing to quickly note too is that even though we do have the 4 seasons, our winter time does span from about, I would say, end of October all the way till around end of March. So it is quite a long period. And our average temperature in the winter is about -10. So a lot of people think that that's super cold. I thought it was really cold too. I used to live in Singapore. When I first came here, I thought that was really cold. But then again, like I said, you get used to it because the city does have all these amenities such as like buses, and we have all these things called pedways where you can connect from one building to another without going outside as much. And it is also a city where you do drive around a lot. And so once you have your own car and you're driving around, you really are not standing outside all that much. And so you don't feel as cold all the time. And then in our summertime, our temperature does go up to about 30 degrees. So it is really nice as well. So we do have a really nice summer and spring. And like I said, we like to go out into the nature during this period of time, just really enjoy the space. And yeah, so those are some of the few things I want to talk about for Edmonton. And now briefly about the education system in Canada. And so this is to explain a little bit more about what we are as NAIT, because we are actually a polytechnic, not a university. And so different people in different education systems might understand that a little bit differently. So NAIT is a polytechnic, which means that we offer things such as certificates, diplomas, degrees, and language training. Diplomas are usually 2-year programs. Certificates are 1-year programs, and degrees are 4 years, usually. You also have your master's degrees, which are about 2 to 3 years. And then so what you can do at a polytechnic, if you did a degree, you can finish that in 4 years, which is the same as a university. So the same thing, and you can still get it into your master's. So why I want to emphasize this is that it's important to know that in Canada, a polytechnic and a university are regarded at the same standard level. The quality of the education is just as good. We just teach a little bit differently because we realize that different people have different kinds of needs. And so, for example, in a university, most of the focus is usually on academic research. So you would be sitting in a huge lecture hall, maybe about 100 people or so, and then you'll be listening to a lecture talk, right? And a lot of the research would be based out of academic papers. They'll say, oh, this is the most latest research, is what we've learned. And then you will also be required to do a lot of writing, like writing papers and such. And I went to university, so that's the kind of education I was very used to. But then in a polytechnic, what we do there is more of applied research. So that means we look at the real life industry problems, and then we try to solve those problems. So most of your studies would be kind of like case studies. There'll be a lot more hands-on. It'll be really geared towards preparing you for the workforce. So then you still get some of the theory, but then you are actually looking at real life. What are some of those issues and how you'll be solving them. My next slide will talk a little bit more about that. So this is basically what our polytechnic education is referring to. So they're usually very much technology based. It's a polytechnic. So most of the way that we teach would be based on using a lot of technology. So for example, if you are studying, say, computer engineering technology, the way that you'll be studying is you will be using a lot of computers. You're not going to be just reading about them, you're actually going to be using them. And we also make sure that all our students have a lot of one-on-one time with the technology itself. And so we're not going to have like 50 people crowd around one machine. And so then you don't actually get time with practicing with that. You actually get your own, a lot of lab spaces where you do get to do that hands-on experience, which is to us very important, because the way the industry looks at our graduates is that we are training up our students to start work right away. And so they do heavily rely on our graduates to make sure that they're just prepped and ready. So if there is a new technology that came out recently that all the industry is using, all the companies are using, they will come and talk to our school and say, hey, this is like really important, really up and coming. We want to make sure your students know how to use it. So then sometimes they might even donate some of that machinery to us to make sure our students are working on those areas. So we call them program advisory committees, and these are groups of people who meet at our school, and they come from these different companies. Every year, they meet about twice a year with our teachers, and they tell us what they want our students to learn. And then they might also tell us, hey, next year we have about 50 people who are probably going to retire. So we are looking to fill that space and that gap with these people. So we want to make sure that you guys have more students graduating to fill that need. So our numbers actually also depend on what they say. So the number of students that we teach and the class sizes are dependent on them. So we're not going to inflate our numbers. We might not have about 100 students if there's only spots for work for about 30. So that is also really important for us because we work really closely with the Alberta province and the industry to make sure that we are filling their need there. So it's kind of like a partnership in that sense. And so that's what I mean by industry partnerships. And with that too, we also offer a lot of what we call co-op programs. So co-op is basically work integrated learning. So while you're studying in your program, that might be perhaps a semester where you get to work in a company. And with that, again, you get a lot of hands-on experience. You see what it's like to work in the actual company. So then when you graduate, you're very comfortable, right? And with that too, it also helps you to find a job, because if you do well in your work integrated learning, the company really likes you. When you graduate, they're looking, right? And I was previously at our career fair, and at the career fair, I saw a lot of different companies as well. And I did ask them if they felt confident in our students, and they said yes. Like they feel like our students, when they graduate, are ready to start working right away. So I have somebody's asking a question about examples of jobs. It really does depend on the actual industry that we're talking about. And I'll give you some categories of the kinds of industries that we work with, right? So if we have a computer engineering, we have a lot of IT areas. So that would be like IT companies. So they might be looking for people who work with networks, or they could be looking for people who work with the actual system itself, or maybe the hardware. So that would be for IT. We have the oil and gas industry. So then we also have people who would then work in maybe the extraction of the oil, or maybe they could be working in the chemistry part, like the chemical part of the oil extraction, or it could be in like the actual delivering of the oil, which would be materials engineering. So there's a lot of different types. We have over 120 different kinds of programs, and so it would really depend. But I'll also show you on our website what it looks like and where you can look to find these information. And then just so very briefly about the rest of the things, our programs are usually a little bit shorter. They are 2-year programs. And so it is designed for our students to graduate faster, and so they can start work. And the class sizes are smaller, again, because of the limited lab spaces. But because of that, you know that you're not competing with a lot of different people when you're looking for a job. You are just really, it's the people who are in your classroom. So it does make it a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about that. And then we also have a really high employer satisfaction rate and employment rate as well, which you can see here. And again, that's due to the kind of reputation that we have on like in Alberta itself. So this is basically some of the words that we've been used to describe us when we ask people what they think about NAIT. Sometimes when I talk to students overseas, they say, "Oh, what is NAIT? I've never heard of them." And it's different when I talk to my colleagues in Canada, and they are telling students in Canada about NAIT, and it's a totally different experience, because people in Alberta know very much about NAIT. We are really well reputable, and so it's easy for you to find a job if you graduated from NAIT. And when you're looking for a job, you're not, the way it works here is that you're not always going to be based on where you graduated from necessarily, because a lot of it actually is they look at the Canadian work experience. So they would be looking at maybe your resumes to see where you've worked at, maybe where you have volunteered at. So those things are really important. Whether you graduated from a degree program at the U of A, University of Alberta, versus if you graduated from NAIT's business program in a degree as well, they're not going to be like, "Oh, I want one over the other." That's not a big deal to them. They would rather look at all the other things that you have done in Canada so far. If you only had experience overseas, that can maybe be a little bit more difficult for you. So when you're looking for jobs, I would definitely recommend that while you're studying as well, to also look for some sort of part-time jobs and other ways to build up your resume. So that's just kind of a bit of a side note for you. So this is our campus. NAIT is actually the second largest polytechnic in all of Canada. We have about 36,000 students in total. So in Alberta itself, we are the third largest post-secondary institution after the University of Alberta and the University of Calgary. And you can see here, it is a very, I guess, it looks very new. This building was built about 2 to 3 years ago, I believe. And a lot of the classrooms do require that you bring your own device when you go in and study. We do heavily rely on technology. And we do have a lot of support services readily available for international students as well. We have an International Student Center with immigration advisors. So again, in the future, if you are thinking of moving and becoming a permanent resident, we have a lot of workshops available for you. And we have, when we say immigration advisors, what they're able to offer is that they can make sure that as an international student, you are compliant with your study permit regulations. And then when you graduate, you can get your postgraduate permit and then eventually permanent residency. So, and I'll talk very briefly about that later as well. But we do have 7 people on campus who are licensed and are able to talk about that. I would say most schools have maybe about 3 to 4. So we have invested a lot into our international student support. We have what we call academic support for international students, counseling support for international students, and we also have what we call peer mentors, who are second-year international students who help first-year students to make sure that they're adapting well. So we just do have a lot of support services for international students who are coming for the first time, and it does get a bit scary, and you do want to succeed. So we want to make sure that we give you all the help that you need. Okay, and then just a few more pictures of our campus. We do have a train system that goes through the city, and it goes straight to NAIT. So it kind of, if you live in other parts of the city close to the train, you can take it and go straight to our school. It just makes it a little bit easier for you as well, and very accessible. We don't actually have campus housing at this point. I know a lot of universities have residences, but we don't have right now. We did buy a piece of land, a really big piece of land recently, and they were thinking of building housing, but that would happen probably in about 5 years. So unless you guys come in 5 years, maybe you might not be able to experience that. But there are a lot of, we have contracts with the University of Alberta and McEwan University in Edmonton, and they're right close to the train stations. So you can stay in their residence, and then you can also then train to our school if you wish to do that. Otherwise, there's also a lot of apartment housing close to the school that you can get to as well. Okay, and I'll get to that question in a bit after I get to this part. So then there is also, like I said, we have a lot of applied learning and hands-on learning, and even a lot of our instructors on campus, they do require that they have work experience in the industry. So they would have worked in the field. So example, if you are studying accounting in a business school, your teacher would have been an accountant and be working as an accountant for at least 10 years. So they can tell you what it's like to be looking for a job and what it's like to actually work as an accountant. So you feel that you can get the mentorship that you need when you start looking for a job. And just a few more pictures of the applied learning pieces, and I'll talk a little bit more about the programs. So this was a survey that we had done for actually not just us, but all international students across Canada. And what I just really wanted to highlight mostly here is that a lot of our students feel that our education has helped them prepare for the employment in Canada, and that a lot of students do plan to live in Alberta once they obtain permanent resident status. So where I'm going with this is that a lot of students who do come to NAIT actually do have post-secondary education background. So maybe they've already worked or studied before, and they are thinking of moving to Canada. And they are thinking of using this study pathway to become a permanent resident. And that's perfectly fine, because the thing is, when you move to a new country, there's a lot of things to adapt to. You can apply straight for a job right away, but it's a bit harder to get permanent residency just from that, right? And so a lot of people would go through the student route. And the nice thing about that is in your 2 years of studies, for example, you get a lot more adapted and used to the country's system. And then you see how things work, you understand what it's like to look for a job. And then after that, you move into the actual working experience. And by that time, you're a bit more equipped and you do more, you'll be a little bit more successful in adapting. So a lot of students like to go through it this way. And it's also a really good return on investment, because you just get a much better sense of what it's like to study here as well. And then if you're coming with your family, it's actually a little bit cheaper than just moving everybody over right away. And Alberta itself is very friendly to immigrants. And so we do have a good, what we call a provincial immigration nominee program. So we do invite people to become permanent residency into our province. Okay, so here are some of the different areas of studies for our international students. These are just areas, they're not even the actual programs themselves. And so if there was one that you are a bit more interested in, you can definitely go onto our website to read up more about it. And I would say, like, a lot of international students do like to go into, for example, business and management, especially if they already have post-secondary education background. It could be something that just adds on more to their their prior knowledge. IT is really popular as well. Obviously, IT is an area that most companies require and need, right? Really, regardless of which industry you're in. So we're talking about like even like wireless technology. You know, everybody kind of needs wireless technology within a company, even if you are an oil and gas company, or even if you are, say, you're in finance, right? And so these are areas that are very popular. And for example, the IT industry is doing quite well in Alberta itself because the government has been putting a lot of money into this industry lately because they do want to diversify out from just oil and gas. But oil and gas is also a good industry to be in. It's just that it is very fluctuating depending on the cost of oil, right? So lately, if you've heard a little bit more about Alberta news, we have had this pipeline that has been kind of stuck for a little bit. And so we haven't been able to get some oil out. And so the oil prices have gone down. So because of these things, it could also affect the job situations, right, in certain areas.
Hi,
And then
I'm sorry for interrupting, but we are running out of time, like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe you want to take some questions.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just finish this slide here. So here again is the rest of the topics. I'm sorry, the areas of studies, and construction is also another really nice area because within Edmonton itself, people are moving into the city. And like I said, it is a growing city. So in terms of construction, it could be a good area as well. So all of these areas, you can go onto our website and take a look. There are a lot more that you can read up on. And most of our programs do require an IELTS of 6.5 overall, and 5.0 is individual band. Or TOEFL, if you like, has to be academic, or 20 for individual band as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly go into the questions and then I'll show you a bit of the website at the end too. And there was somebody who asked if there was a university doctorate program for gifted children topic. So we actually don't have master's program at all at our school. So not graduate programs or anything like that. If you are interested in that, I would say definitely you have to go into a university. If you're still interested in going to Alberta, you can check out the University of Alberta or University of Calgary. I'm not sure if they have this specifically, but maybe they have that. Whether we take SATs, we do accept a lot of different systems around the world, but then we do have to make an assessment on that. So it is acceptable for sure. We just have to do an assessment. Okay. Let me look into the questions area. Yeah, so yep, somebody had asked if I offered master's and PhD, so sorry, we don't do that. For application deadlines for the fall of 2020, which is September, our deadline is actually, I would say May, but I would apply as soon as you can because there are programs that have already been full by now. So if you are interested in applying in a particular program, feel free to contact me. I will put my contact information at the end. And please feel free to email me and I can let you know which programs are still available at this point. If not, you can also look into January 2021 start, and there might be more programs available for you. Okay, and then somebody had asked if we can apply for 1 or 2 semesters with a student exchange program or be full-term students. So we do have a few exchange programs, but not very much available at this point. So it's, I would say, unfortunately, it's quite limited. So it does depend on which area as well. We only have a few programs that offer this. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of answers for that. Okay, and then somebody said, are there IT programs and open for scholarships? So scholarships are available for our students in our second year, not in our first year. So when you're coming into the program for your first year, you do have to show that you have enough to afford for the tuition for the first year. And then in your second year, if you do quite well, you can probably apply for different types of scholarships. I'll see if I can find here. So this is some of our stats. You can see the tuition costs, and this is for per semester. So for 1 year, our tuition cost is about 18, I would round it up, about 18,000 Canadian dollars. Okay. And then you can also see here on this that you can see the books and supplies costs, and then the employment rate of our students when they graduated and their salary when they graduated as well. And so you can see a little bit more about like the return on investment for you. Okay, And yeah, somebody asked about scholarship, which I answered as well. And so somebody had asked at the beginning about world rankings. So I understand maybe in other areas of the world, rankings are really important, but then, like I said, when you're looking for a job here in Canada, world rankings are really not that important. It's actually really not emphasized on at all. And so to be honest, I don't even really know because we can't really rank different systems. You know, it's kind of like ranking apples to oranges. And so I would rather that, you know, you look into the type of program that you're interested in and the type of learning that you prefer, and then go from there. So when you're looking for a program, and if you're looking for where you would like to stay as well. Okay. And then let's see. Somebody else had said, which exams do you have to take to apply for our schools? And do you need to finish high school in order to apply? So in terms of exams, that was just the IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson, or this is for the English piece. So you would definitely need to have an English language proficiency test taken. That would be the first thing. And then after that, you would also need to finish your high school at least to apply. And when you're applying, definitely submit all your transcripts. We would like to see both your post-secondary and high school transcripts, and that would be really good for you. Let me see what other, I can skip over this. This is where you can look into our website and take a look at the different offerings that we have. So this is for our business program, for example. You can see when we start, how long the programs are. All our programs are accredited, and you can get a post-graduation work permit as long as the program is more than 2 years. We do accept most international students. And I would definitely suggest that you look into what you'll be learning, the careers that you'll be able to get when you're done. Click on the contact area to talk to a program area because they know a lot more about their program themselves. You can look at the graduation rates and the median salaries. That will be helpful for you to see your job prospects when you're done. The courses that you will be taking, as well as the tuition costs for that program. So every program is quite different. So my information will also just be a range at this point for you. So if you have a particular program you're interested in, definitely get in contact. And you can also look really deeply into our website with all the information that you will be requiring. And okay. So just wanted to briefly go to the end where you can see my contact information. Okay. So this is my contact. You can always email me at echan@nait.ca, or you can WhatsApp me. Okay, I'm also very open to texting as well, or if you have WeChat or Kakao, feel free to message me there as well. But I would say definitely right now, because we are running quite a bit out of time, so I'm not able to cover everything. But if you're interested in applying for any of our programs, definitely get in touch with me. I'm able to expedite your application a lot faster. And what you just need to, and I can give you a bit more information about that as well. But basically, we will require your transcripts as well as your English language proficiency testing. To apply for September. Right now, it is a bit of a time crunch. So you could, but again, it depends on which program you're interested in and whether those programs have already been full. And if they're already full, then again, you know, look into the January start date if you're open to starting a little bit later as well. Document. So I'll be able to share this PowerPoint with you guys for sure. And you guys can take a look at it in detail later as well. And because I wasn't able to cover everything, so maybe you can read it a little bit more. I'm going to share media. Let's see if I can. Okay. Yeah, so I will share that and then paste the link later as well. So maybe that will help for you to be able to go through the actual PowerPoint slides and then be able to read through it a little bit. Here, let's see if it works. Okay. All right, it doesn't work here. So what I'm going to do is I will share it through WeTransfer or Dropbox, and then I'll just send it to the emails that are currently on here. So yeah, I'll get a list of people who are on this website. Who are on this webinar, and I'll share it with you guys, okay? Sorry, I had to rush through a lot of stuff here, but that was a lot of information that I wanted to share with you. Were there any other questions that you might have? Let's see if there was anything else that I've missed.
Well, we kind of run out of time now, but thank you very much, Evan.
Yeah, no worries.
End this webinar right now.
Okay. What do I need to do? Or you guys can do it from your end.
Yeah, we will end.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.